Good morning once again, and welcome to this informative webinar on the Sword of Honor applications brought to you exclusively by the British Safety Council India. I'm Melroy Alphonso, the India Events Manager with the British Safety Council. Firstly, many congratulations to all of you for winning the Five-Star Audit with us and for accomplishing this amazing milestone. And now the next milestone will be to apply and win the Sword of Honor. And to throw light on this application process and to clear all your doubts, we have none other than the Senior Head of Audit and Consultancy with the British Safety Council, Mr. Suresh Tanwar. But before we begin, there are a few housekeeping rules that I would like to highlight to all of you. First, please post in all your questions in the Zoom Q&A box only. Do not use the chat box, but the Zoom Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. At the end of this webinar, please ensure to fill out a short survey form that will pop up on your screens immediately after the webinar is done, as this will ensure and enable us to serve you better. Lastly, the recording of this webinar will be sent to you via email soon after this webinar has ended. And now, without wasting much time, let me invite Suresh to take over. Suresh, all over to you.
Thank you, Melroy, and good morning, everyone attending this webinar. So first of all, congratulations on achieving this milestone of getting 5-star. There are various milestones. The first one is getting the 5-star. The second is there should be no fatality. The third would be no prosecution on health and safety requirements. And the fourth is getting 45 out of 60. So it's never a cakewalk. It's quite difficult, but it's achievable. So going from 5-star rating to Sword of Honor. So can go to the next slide. So I'll be taking the questions one by one, but before that, we will look at the general kind of instructions. Can you share the screen? Yeah. So if you see that normally we have, every year the questions are 4 and the passing marks is 45 out of 60. But just to refresh your mind again, a minimum of 2 individual responses must be within the group of 11 to 15. And there should be no response between 0 to 5. If it is 0 to 5, let's say an organization gets 15 out of 15 3 elements. And let's say for a theoretical purpose, it gets 0 in the 4th element. So it's 45 out of 60. But that is a disqualification because the conditions are at least in 2 bands, 2 questions. The response should be, the achievement of score should be between 11 to 15. And there should be no sort of score outcome between 0 to 5. So this is the general instruction. And all along we have been saying that there are 750 words. But in your case, with the multiple sites, the word count is 1250. So it's not mentioned here, but this is the purpose of the webinar to let you know. And this was there last year as well for those multiple sites who had applied for it. There is an important para, the downmost at the end of this sort of slide, which is very important for you to understand. From 2025, which is this year, a sample of application will be randomly selected, and there will be an interview to validate what you have said in the what you call in your application to what extent it has been deployed, to what extent it has been understood and implemented. So it's kind of a validation that will be done through a process of sampling. It will be a random sampling, and that date for that will be announced around the 29th of September. And a few days after that, there will be virtual interview. Now, there will be no presentation required for that. It will be more of an interview to respond to the questions that will be asked by the interviewer. This is something new that has been added this year, which was not there in previous years. So with that, we go to the questions now. If you go to the first slide, which is the first question, it says with relevant reference to the outcome from your recent 5-star audit, Health and Safety Audit explained how this site ensures the participation of all employees groups in the continual improvement of the occupational health and safety management system and associate arrangements. So here it is written all employee groups. So it's in italics, which is sort of written here. All employee groups is at all levels. It goes right from the top management to senior management, middle management goes down to the workers, and therefore it is important when the response is given that all those are taken care of during the response. That is sort of given at that particular point in time. So there are three bands, as you know, 11 to 15, 6 to 10, and 0 to 5. So the expectation is full description of how the organization ensures that full employee participation, and a full description or discussion of how these groups were identified, that is RASI metrics, employee job family assessment, etc. So this is what it is. Your focus should be always to hit the target from 11 to 15. You should not be even looking at 0 to 5, because that's where you're looking at. Even if you don't get the score between 11 to 15, you might land up at 6 to 10. But you should look at the guidelines that are given here from 11 to 15. That's very, very important. So it's also written in the second para, full discussion of the methods used to encourage and facilitate participation, that is focus group, safety forums, safety committees, safety suggestion schemes, and all of that. So there are various ways of engagement that happens. In addition to that, there is a behavior-based safety also is a vehicle for engagement, as we know. There is town hall. There is also sharing of incidents and all of that. So there are various ways where the employees can get engaged, and therefore the participation of employee groups for the continual improvement can be there as a result of that. So this is important from the point of view, it's more of engagement. And since your sites are 1250, your score, your word count is 1250, there is an opportunity for you to have a consolidated view of the entire sites and then give your response. So we're not looking at individual kind of a response from each site and all of that. It's got to be a consolidated one, and that's why there is a one application for it. That's the reason for that. So this was about the employee participation. And if you go to the next question, can we go to the next question? Now, the first part of the question remains same for every question, which is with relevant reference to the outcome from your recent 5-star health and safety audit. The main question is describe how the site has established a suitable process to recognize and support employee mental health. So mental health it is not wellness. You see, there is in our consultancy sessions also we have mentioned that. In our 5-star awareness workshops also we have mentioned very, very clearly that well-being is a very holistic thing. In that, physical wellness, physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional, spiritual, all of that are there. So here we are looking at mental health. So you see, very important for us to understand it is mental health. So the question is, describe how the site has established suitable processes to recognize and support employee health. Now you can establish suitable processes when you have looked at what are those issues that can cause, or what are those issues that can trigger mental health in employees. So is it work-life balance, or is it what you call a fatigue as a result of not only physical fatigue but mental fatigue as well? Is it because of the roles and responsibilities are not very clear? So all these things come under mental health. Now the proactive measures that the companies take is they have an EAP, and we have mentioned that and many times in our training programs as well. EAP is Employee Assistance Program, which most of the companies have. So how good or bad it is utilized? It should be utilized. It's not that EAP has been arranged by HR department and nobody makes a use of it. So EAP program, Employee Assistance Program, is an arrangement with a psychological company, and they can have one-on-one conversation with the individuals who have issues like stress or any other related issues. And that becomes confidential. So HR only knows where people are taking use of it or not more than that, because they should know that if you have created something, they have spent money on something, they should know it's being utilized, so they can have a campaign and all that. But the discussion that happens between the employee and this agency remains confidential. So that is one of the ways to do that. Mental health. The other thing is in a both proactive and reactive manner would be absenteeism and presenteeism. Well, absenteeism is, well, person is not able to come back to work for person is absolutely under stress and all that. So there is absenteeism due to physical health, but we are talking about mental health. So therefore stress, an extreme level of stress and all that, not able to come to work without prior information, just says I can't come to work today, for example. So that is becomes absenteeism. And presenteeism is also something that can be monitored, which is about a person is there on the work, but is not focused on the job. So therefore the productivity is low. And also he or she is prone to accidents because of distraction and because of not being focused on the job. So these are some of the things that on mental health that we've been talking about. The other things are whether the organization is a stress management program through that agency, again, expert external agency, not in-house as such, or whether you carried out a well-being survey. Right in the beginning, when you say, it starts with the process, what is the process for mental health, employee health, and all that, whether there is a policy or a strategy on mental health to begin with. So these are the things that we are looking at, from the mental health point of view. So what is the process and how you deployed it? So if you look at here now in the first one, a full description of how the approach were identified, assessed, and suitably and suitability and also implemented. So the response contains a wide range of relevant examples. All examples provided within the are clearly related to the relevant outcomes of the recent five-star health and safety audit. Now, you should always able to link in some way, not in every detail, every line and all that, not required, but in some way you should be able to relate it to the five-star audit. And otherwise also, if that particular point was not checked in five-star audit and you think that you have that and you could not sort of display it, sort of talk about it, you can mention that, your good practices in mental health and things like that. So this is what it is. Now, every, what you call question has that guidance, that example should be given. If you see on the right-hand side extreme, few or no examples. In the middle one, it is some outcomes are related to, where is that example? So there are some center one. The response contains reference to some examples. And here it is with maximum examples. So therefore, now that you all are from what you call with multiple sites, so there is an opportunity for you to give maximum examples from different sites and all of that. And that's why you will be able to fill in 1250 words. You're not restricting to 750 words for your organization. It is 1250 words so that you're able to give more and more examples. So you have to talk about how the process was set, how it is going on, and then support it with relevant examples. That is the sort of ask from this question. Now, if you go to the third one, is about describe how the emergency planning and associate arrangements are clearly linked to the risk assessment process and how that drives compliance. Now, this is about, they're closely linked, as you know, emergency response plan and risk assessment. When we look at the emergency response plan, we are already talking about the risks there. We are talking about natural disaster risks. We are talking about, fall from height, electrocution, terrorist attack, and all of that. Now, in some way, they are also there in the risk assessment. So in what way are they sort of aligned? How do they sort of interrelate with each other? And what are the examples where, if an incident has happened, and then how it is being again, your risk assessment is being reviewed again so that, to understand that maybe that risk was not envisaged and therefore, that risk assessment was not adequate for that particular activity and all that, and therefore that has caused an emergency. So there's a close relationship. And then the question is, how the emergency planning and associated arrangements are clearly linked to the risk assessment process, and how this drives compliance. Now, when you say compliance, here is combination of both. Now, compliance is to a certain extent is also compliance from the emergency response plan is a compliance. But here we are also talking about internal compliance. So if you have had something, how do you sort of, relate risk assessment with the incident that has happened, and therefore it becomes an emergency and all that, or emergency planning, how it is done in order to make sure that your risk assessment process is also robust. A linkage has to be drawn between the two. When you talk about the compliance here, don't stick to only legal compliance, don't stick to only internal requirements compliance. Compliance, a combination of both. You can talk about both. I think that would be better. Right. So if you go to, now if you look at here, hold on. If you look at here, the guidance that is given, a full explanation, clearly documenting, demonstrating how the emergency planning and associated arrangements are linked to each other, which we have already covered that, a range of relevant examples of campaigns, programs, training programs also can come in, and all of that. And one of the things that we also mentioned in BSc is if there is a tabletop exercise, which is about sitting at the table, looking at the scenario, and then and there's a moderator, different people playing different roles and all that, and how that scenario keeps escalating, and then therefore how that mitigation happens with this team that is sitting there. So it's a strictly tabletop exercise, which is also looking at the different risks and how the role players are playing that role when they're given that role. Somebody is given the role of medical doctor, somebody is given the role of factory inspector, somebody else is given the role of spokesman of the company and all of that. And if the incident keeps escalating, how they keep responding and all that is that exercise about, which is a tabletop exercise. Yeah, next one. Sorry for I got a bad throat. I have to keep sipping water. Okay, so now here is explain how the site's top management ensures the continual effectiveness of OHSMS. I think this is quite pretty simple. Every year in some way or the other, this question does come. So here identifies a significant contribution this community makes to compliance, culture, and engagement of health and safety matters, and discusses the role that they play in driving continual improvement in health and safety. The response is supported by clear examples, number of examples and all that. Now, the senior leadership is actually creating the culture in the organization. Senior leadership is the engine, as I say normally, and it creates a culture in the organization by their behavior and by the acts, by their omissions and commissions, good culture or bad culture, whatever it is. That drives the behavior, and the behavior drives the performance. That's how it is. So therefore, is the senior leadership coming to the site, asking questions to the people? Is senior leadership allocating the right resources? Is senior leadership aware of not to give conflicting messages and all that, saying today that, safety is important and all that. But when they talk about production, then there's a greater length of time and more emphasis in the body language. So that's a conflicting message that comes. So senior leadership here, how are they driving to ensure continual improvement of the health and safety management system? So a couple of examples could be there. As I said, one of the things that can be there is about, their allocation of resources, of course, but also not only, looking at things from a distance, but going closer and asking questions to the people and making sure that, the concerns of people are taken up and they are also sort of addressed from time to time. They themselves need to take part in the behavior-based safety when they go to the site and look at things, look at the behaviors, intervene where required. Don't let things pass by when you're walking, which is in an unsafe situation kind of a thing. And also, they need to be ensuring that anything that is done in terms of changes, uh, new projects, expansion of projects, all of that, whatever is being done, the decision making and anything that is being done in order to sort of expand the business, safety becomes an integral part of it. And they also need to make sure that they ask the questions not only to the safety people but also to the line management as well. But safety people have got their own role to play, but it's the line management that they are answerable for the issues that can sort of happen on the ground. So that is something very important. So leadership commitment, they've got to walk the talk, they've got to practice what they preach, they've got to role model. So how are they doing all that? In different examples, this is something that can be looked at, which is the question number 4. Now, with this question, I think I come to an end, and I hand over back to Melroy. And Melroy, please take over.
Yes, thank you so much, Suresh, for conducting this webinar. And I'm sure you've been able to solve everyone's doubts. So I would request the audience to please post your questions in the Zoom Q&A box. I'll continue to keep my screen shared in case we need to navigate to any questions. So Suresh, one question that came in the Q&A box is that when you mentioned 1250 words, so is it 1250 words overall or is it per question?
So 1250 question is per question. Just like it was 750 words per question, it is 1250 words per question. So the 750 into 4 was 3000, right? Was it 3000? Yeah.
Yes,
And here
715 to
1250 into
4.
4 is 5000. So, but it is 1250 per question, not overall. Overall, it will
Okay,
become still less if it is overall. It is
correct.
1250
Yes.
per question, which was 750. Now it is 1250 because of number of sites are more. That is the logic. The logic is sites are more, so the questions word count also will be more because they're talking about different sites and all that in a consolidated manner, of course.
Mhm. Yes. So I'm going to read out another question that has come in. So it's quite a long question, but I'm guessing it's going to be an important one. So it says that what key pieces of evidence should we include and carefully consider when completing the group application? And given the range of evidence submitted by participating sites, how might each site be assessed, especially considering that the jury's interpretation and perspective could influence the outcome? So, as you've already mentioned, that we may also refer to examples that were not independently verified, as the sites followed a surveillance-based model.
It's a very longish question.
Yeah.
So you can just repeat that
Yeah, or
without any.
maybe I'll just break the question. I'll just
Yeah,
break it into a few parts. So the
yeah.
first part goes as what key pieces of evidence should we include and carefully consider when completing the group application? Given the range of evidence submitted by participating sites, how might each assessment be assessed, especially considering that the jury's interpretation and perspective could influence the outcome?
So we are talking about consolidated response here. We are not, if there is some specific kind of a thing which is there in a particular site and all that can always be mentioned, but we are not. Where are we looking at evidence? We're not looking at evidence and all that here. We are looking at the response to the questions, and sort of tie up with the what do you call the audit report findings and things like that. So it's possible for those who have gone for surveillance audits, that particular question might not have been in the audit. That's fine. So we are not looking at, this site was under surveillance audit, so therefore this question was not there. We are looking at holistically. So whether it was surveillance audit or full scale audit, whatever it was, what is your response to that question? That is what we are looking at. So therefore you have to keep the key points are not, what each site evidence has to be produced and all that. The key point is that have you considered holistically the response to that question, keeping in mind all those 10, 12 sites that you have? I think that would be my response.
Yes, yes. And there's another similar question, which says that while giving reference to the five-star audit outcome, is the expectation to give a reference of the element of the relevant element number with the audit report number and site name? Or is the expectation for a detailed statement or to provide the auditor's comment verbatim?
No, so there is no need to give a reference and all that. There is not required. There's no need to give reference to the number and all that. We can always say with reference to whatever the question is, that way it can be sort of put in that manner. There's no need to put number 1.03, 3.02 and all that. That's not required. not required.
Okay, okay. And there's another question that has come up that once the applications have been submitted, the results are out. Is there any process for re-evaluation in case we're not happy with the results?
So if the results are out, there is an appeal process. And now, of course, this is beyond the scope of this webinar, but there is an appeal process that can be done. But then what is the process and all that that can be, so that I think that should be done when if it is the results are not as per the desired outcome, you can take it up at that time rather than talking about it right now. But yeah, but there is an appeal process, I can say that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would request all those joining in to please post in your questions in the Zoom Q&A box. So, Suresh, there's another question about the interview that you had mentioned at the start of the webinar. So, how will the client be selected for this interview? Any specific criteria, or how is it that I'm going to be selected for the interview?
It'll be a random process. It'll be it'll not be as per sector. It'll not be as per old site, new sites, number of times the audit has been done on this, that. It'll be a very, very random process.
Okay, okay. And so if my company is selected for the interview, do I need to prepare something specifically, any presentation or anything of that sort?
So presentation will not be required. But when whatever the questions that they pose, you will have to sort of respond to them, but there will be no presentation as such that is required.
Okay, okay. Thanks, Suresh. I think there are
Hmm.
no more questions that have come up. In case the audience wants to ask more questions, please post in your questions now, or maybe later you can write back to us in case you've not remembered any questions. So, Suresh, before we end, any advice, any parting advice that you'd like to
So
give
there
these
are, yeah, there
companies?
are a couple of advices which I've been giving in past as well. Let me again sort of share them. 1250 words means 1250 words. Doesn't mean 1252. 1249 is okay. 1200 is also okay if you feel that 1200 words, you put your story together, it's fine. Uh, this is an application. This is more of a story writing, building up rather than bullet points. So it's not a bullet point kind of a presentation. So you have to take care of that point, give as many examples as possible. Have you seen that in order to land up at 11 to 15 band, you have to give more and more examples. And because you have so many sites, you can give a lot of examples there. That is to your advantage as well. Then, uh, then also, the application should be not be at one level. We have seen that, and I've said that in the last 2 3 years also. It should be written by somebody, can be by a safety manager or whatever it is, reviewed by the in case of factories and all, manufacturing head, in case of what do you call the facility management companies, cluster head and all that, reviewed by them, and maybe a final review even at the top, which is operations head and things like that. When that happens, the finish comes. So it is much more sort of refined, and is much better. But that happens, there could be a little bit of pitfall when it keeps sort of refining and all that, the words may increase. So when you are about to submit, maybe instead of 1250 words, it is 1 to 1300 words. So therefore, you have to again come down to the 1250 words. That's important. So make sure that before the button is clicked and it is sent, it is 1200 words, 1250 words. So that's very, very important to understand. So no bullet points, give as many examples as possible, and 3 levels of refinement will actually do that, will help you to do that. But it doesn't mean at the third level it's only all English and all that, and the basic content actually is lost. That also should not happen. So when it is at the first level, the content is very strong, but the articulation is not very good. So the whole idea is when it goes to the third level and all that, it becomes much better before the final submission. I think that is the point I'm trying to say. So this is the
Yes.
final this thing. If any more question has come, we can take that. Yeah, but this is I wanted to sort of inform. There's one more thing I wanted to inform. That is Innovation Award scheme, which was there last year as well, for which a different communication will come. And what is this innovation that you have done? Giving example, maybe a photograph and all of that. So that will be a different communication that will come across. But that also is something that you can look at. This is Innovation Award for a particular site. Now, this will be for a site. This will not be for a group and all that, because you're looking at that particular site for this particular thing. So that's another information, right?
Yeah. Yes. So before I take the last question, Suresh, I would just like to mention to the audience, in case you want to download this presentation, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you have a resources tab. If you click the resources tab, you'll be able to download this document. So at the bottom of your screen, where you have all the icons, there's one more icon called the resources tab. Click the tab and you will be able to download this document. So Suresh, the last question that someone asked in terms of the number of words, as we said, there are 1250 words per question, which totals up to 5000 words in total. Now, for
Yes.
example, for question one, can I answer 1200 words and in the next question 1300 words as long
No,
as my
no,
total is still 5000?
no. It has to be 1250 or less, but it cannot be in any question cannot be more than 1250. That's how it
Okay.
is. 1250 is the maximum. It's a cap there. 1250 per question. It cannot be 1200 in one and 1300 in another. That can't be done. Right?
Okay.
And also, no organization chart, no presentation, no safety policy, or nothing of that sort has to be, no schematic and all that has to be attached. It's all text. It's all text. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yes. I think that brings us to the end of this webinar because there are no questions since a long time. And in case
Yeah.
anybody has any questions, please write back to us and we'll be able to answer all your questions. So I would like
I
to
think
thank, yeah,
I think
go
they
ahead.
are there. I think they are past masters. They've been doing it for the last 3-4 years, so
Yes,
they've got
yes,
quite
that's the
mature by
reason.
this time. So I think that's why the questions are coming less now. Initially, there used to be a lot of questions, but yeah, I think that's goes because of that. Okay,
Yes,
right.
all of them are pros at this. Yes. So, yeah, thank you so much, Suresh, for conducting this informative session. And on
Mhm.
behalf of the British Safety Council India, I would like to thank all of you who took the time to attend today's webinar. And I'm sure we've been able to clear all your doubts. In case you need further clarity, please remember to contact your respective representative with us here at the British Safety Council or write to us at marketing@britsafe.in. That's marketing at britsafe.in, and we'll make sure to write back to you. Please remember to fill out this short survey form with your feedback that will appear on your screens shortly after this webinar has ended. And also remember the recording of this webinar is available to you, that will be sent to you via email after this webinar has ended. And in case you want to download this presentation, please click the resources tab and download this document. Once again, thank you everyone for joining in. All the best for your applications and have a lovely day ahead. Thank you so much.